The first full week in April is by far the most difficult week of the year for me to concentrate on things that need to be done, more so than at any other time of the year. In this video, I'm going to explain why that is the case for me and for many others. Hey everyone, Ron Sanchez here from The Good Read, where I help others understand the complex simplicity of the Christian faith, what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and how we can apply the teachings of Jesus to our everyday lives. Before we get started, if this is your first time watching, make sure you hit the subscribe button and be sure to check out any links that may be listed below for additional videos and resources that will help bring clarity to the often misunderstood and misrepresented truths of Christianity. This is the week of the most renowned golf tournament in history, the Masters, played at Augusta National Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia. The first Masters took place in 1934 and has happened every year since, with the exception of 3 years when, due to World War II, it was not played. That's 85 years of tournaments. The magnetic pull I feel throughout this week is far too strong to resist. So rather than hurt myself trying, I succumb and watch the interviews, the live practice sessions on the driving range, and all of this before the actual tournament starts on Thursday morning, to conclude 3 days later on Sunday afternoon. It was my good fortune that in God's providence, I happened to be born in April, my birthday often falling within the week of the Masters. And so my favorite birthday celebration is chips and salsa, some guacamole, and other of my favorite appetizers sitting on the coffee table that separates the couch I'm sitting on and the television set for a full, uninterrupted, several-hour viewing of the last round of the Masters from start to finish. I'm getting excited just thinking about it. The memories of watching the tournament on television go back to the mid to late 60s when I would watch it with my dad. He got me interested in golf when I was around 13 years old, and by the time I reached the age of 16, it was all I wanted to do, play golf. In the summer of 1969, I moved from Colorado Springs, where I was living with my mother, to Las Vegas, Nevada to live with my dad, where the weather was conducive to year-round golf. And for the next 10 years, I devoted most every day to practicing in the hopes that one day I would don the green jacket that is reserved only for those who are Masters champions. It is every aspiring golfer's dream. By the time I graduated from high school, I was rated third among the high school golfers in Las Vegas. After 3 years in the Army, winning the Fort Carson Post Championship and playing for the Fort Carson traveling team, I received a full-ride golf scholarship to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I played number 1 and 2 in my junior and senior years. It was in my junior year of college that the Lord Jesus apprehended me, and to no surprise, it was the year I played my best golf. I remember how prior to teeing off at the start of the tournaments, going off by myself to pray, asking God to give me a calm about the day and to keep my priorities in order throughout the tournament, focusing on Him, the one who saved me, the one whom I wanted to cherish above all else. I can still remember my last season. It was my senior year, and I devoted everything I could muster to see if I was good enough to play as a professional. At the end of the season, I concluded I was not. I graduated in 1979 and with my family in tow, headed off to my first real job as an assistant manager for a trade association in Casper, Wyoming. Golf continued to play a big role in my life, though it was secondary to my God, my career, and my family. 24 years later, in 2003, the day after my 50th birthday, my dad died of a brain hemorrhage as a result of falling on his patio. He was battling a very aggressive cancer at the time, which we were all, including Dad, expecting would take his life. Months and then a year went by, to the puzzlement of the doctors. And needless to say, we were all shocked that God chose to take him the way he did, and so suddenly. I flew to be with the rest of the family, arriving at the hospital on April 13th, just a few hours after he had passed. Providentially, it was Master's Sunday. The idea of the Lord's providence, by definition, is the hand of God orchestrating our lives. I remember the first time I heard a very dear friend of mine, much older than me and wiser, and a pastor who used the word providence in the sentence, "In the Lord's providence," he began. Now, I don't remember what he was referring to, but when he said, "In the Lord's providence," immediately I had this keen awareness that he fully trusted God's plan for his life. And from that moment, I wanted to trust God in the same manner. That was several years ago. And since then, I've discovered the reality of God's providence in our lives, and must tell you that there are few things more exciting and calming than knowing that God is intricately involved in everything we do. I wish I could have embraced this glorious truth at the beginning of my Christian walk. It makes life all the more enjoyable, especially during times of uncertainty when you're waiting, anticipating God's next move, and then embracing the truth that He knows everything, each intimate detail of our lives, far better than we do. The older I get, the more I find the discovery of His plan to be exhilarating. There were few things I loved more in life than playing golf with my dad. I wrote about it in a piece I called Weapons of Destruction. This was in reference to how Dad described his golf clubs. I posted a link to that blog post below. I especially loved it when our Saturday afternoon following a morning round of golf was spent laying on the floor watching the week's golf tournament on television. Or better yet, when, upon the completion of the televised event, Dad suggested we head to the range and hit some balls. Or even better, play 9 holes. And now he was gone. As somber of a day as it was, the siblings found it quite fitting that the Masters was playing in the background on the television in his hospital room. We also found comfort in how pleased Dad would have been that Tiger Woods was losing and clearly not going to win. Woods had already won 3 Masters, including the previous 2 years, 2001 and 2002. To say that Dad wasn't a Tiger Woods fan would be a huge understatement. 10 years later, on my 60th birthday, my children, along with a number of other friends and family, generously provided the funds and plane tickets for myself and my youngest son, an avid golfer himself, to go to the Masters. This memorable trip took place in 2015. It was an experience like no other. So, what does all this have to do with Jesus, golf, and God's providence? Well, it's springtime, and every year I begin to think a lot about golf. I played my first round of the year this past Tuesday, and I'm already anxiously anticipating the next. And every year I begin to reminisce, to think about the days gone by and the what-ifs that often accompany the reminiscing. What if I had practiced harder? What if Dad had given me more lessons, sent me to play in more tournaments as a youngster? What if this or what if that? Could I possibly have played in the Masters and maybe even won it and worn the green jacket? What if? but in God's providence, it wasn't meant to be. I stumbled upon another way of saying God's providence. I stumbled upon a book recently, The Green Road Home by Michael Bomberger. Bomberger was a senior writer for Sports Illustrated for 23 years before joining Golf Magazine as a writer. The book is about caddying on the professional golf tour and the things he learned as a caddy on the tour. Something he set out to do for 6 months after college. It was 1985, 6 years after I had graduated from college. Needless to say, I was captivated through his writing by a look inside the ropes, a term used to denote all that happens away from the gallery, the people on the other side of the ropes who are watching the tournaments. I thought I was simply reading another book about the sport I love so much. However, God had other things in mind for me. As I was reading it, things He wanted to teach me, to reveal to me, things that were the furthest on my mind as I was reading, so far that they weren't on my mind at all. Isn't that the way it is with God? I love it when I'm bounding along my way, doing one thing, and behind the scenes, God is orchestrating something else. Michael Bomberger is 7 years younger than me, almost to the day. And there I was, getting a look inside the ropes at the professional golf tour I once longed to be a part of, one I've studied over the years. And as I'm reading, he begins to mention some of my childhood golf idols, describing their lives, their successes, and their tragic failures, failed marriages, addictions, etc. And then, in addition to my golf idols, he begins to describe guys I played with in college tournaments. Guys who went on to have stellar professional careers in the sport. Many who played in the Masters, some of whom came close to winning the Masters. And as I'm reading this, there is this sudden wave of contentment that sweeps over me, a contentment that doesn't need to strive, that doesn't need to think about the what ifs. One that instead simply appreciates my accomplishments in golf and the many experiences it provided, and all with no disappointment of what they might have been. I think of the words of Paul, who best summarized contentment in his letter to the Christians in Philippi. He wrote this: I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through Him, through Jesus, who strengthens me. I'm currently reading a book entitled Let's Study Mark. It's a study through the Gospel of Mark by Sinclair Ferguson. Sinclair is a Scottish theologian and, as I understand, a very good golfer. It's no wonder, since Scotland is the birthplace of the sport in 1754. On Tuesday, I read these recorded words of Jesus. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? I thought it quite fitting in light of all that the Lord was showing me during this past week, Masters Week, and couldn't help but apply His words to my pursuit of a green jacket and all of the what-ifs that followed. What does it profit a man to win the Masters and don the green jacket and forfeit his soul? My interpretation, of course. Don't get me wrong, I still love the game of golf, and I will until I breathe my last, especially in the spring when the smell of freshly mowed grass is wafting through the air and yet another Masters golf tournament has begun. And this Sunday you will find me sitting in front of the television set with a table of chips and salsa and guacamole before me, wondering who will put on the green jacket this year. But in the Lord's providence, I love Jesus more. And this year there'll be a greater sense of calm than ever, that I'm right where He always wanted me to be. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the links below. And if you know someone who you think might benefit from this video, be sure to share it with them. Pass it along. And please let me know in the comments section below what's on your mind, and if there are any other topics you might like to see me cover. I'd love to hear from you. That's why I'm here. Until next time, you can trust the Bible. It is God's Word, and it's a very good read. Why? Because it makes sense. Have an awesome